Anomalies. Anomalies.
Anomalies.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Anomalies. This is a program about things seen out of the corner of one's eye, about shadows and what lurks in those shadows. This is a program about the unexplained and the unexplainable.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of my favorite pastime, Anomalies, the Anomalies podcast. And I think my broadcast buddy Dave is with me. That appears to be you. Is it not? Is that a true statement, Dave?
It is I, yes. We
I.
are here once again with another fascinating guest. And
right.
Today's guest, she will run the gamut of the weird, the things that we love to talk about here. So we're hoping to get in a whole bunch of really cool insights and make some connections between different phenomena. So I'm excited to have our guest today.
Yes, and our guest is Mardi McCray, who we kind of met in a group that we were in for a while, all in. And there are a lot of reasons to have Mardi on the show, but one of the reasons is I'm kind of fascinated about the Skinwalker Ranch, and that's a really weird place in Utah. And what I've found from talking to Mardi is we've got our own version of a Skinwalker Ranch here in Washington State. So that's one of the reasons we want to have Mardi on today. How are you doing, Mardi?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're glad to have you.
My pleasure to be here.
Okay, cool. Well, let's just start start with some kind of origin question. So you are a psychic medium, correct?
Yes.
And then is it evidential or evidentiary?
Evidential. That's the brand of mediumship that I practice. It's tell us what
that is.
The intention is that when mediums, there's psychic, the world of psychic abilities, and then there's the world of mediumship, and it's really two different things, but they do overlap. And so being a psychic and a medium, I've had these gifts, abilities my entire life, but I'm 58 years old. I only started practicing when I turned about 50 and started taking it very seriously and actually became a professional psychic and medium. So evidential mediumship, that's the ability to, mediumship is speaking with your loved ones who have crossed over, who have died, and the ability to do that and connect with them. And evidential is just that when you leave a reading with me, you would recognize your loved one, that I bring in enough evidence that I could not have known, that you would go, yeah, that's my grandpa, or, that's my loved one. And psychic is tuning into your energy and your etheric body. And that's a whole different game. You can actually approach mediumship through the psychic as well. But so that's where they sort of do overlap. If I tune into your aura, for example, I see colors. The colors all mean something. And we all have chakras or energy centers in our body that correspond to different colors. And so we hold our earthly stories in our energetic field. So that's another way. Often when you were just mentioning before we got started about another gal who you had as a guest here who read you both, and sounds like she did a lovely job, a psychic reading, tuning into your energy. But through that, she also found a person who may or may not have been deceased in your energetic field, Dan. So it's a fascinating thing. The more I practice, the more clients I have, the more experiences I have, the larger my library becomes. So I have all kinds of crazy stories that have happened to me because of these abilities, but also just, living where I do near Mount Adams in Washington State, there's a lot of crazy, freaky things that happen here too.
Before we get into the crazy, freaky things, which is what everyone's here for, I admit, I remembered why before the interview, I brought up the fact that we had interviewed Joanne Clarkson, and she used tarot cards to do reading. And then the other person was Karen Dahlman.
Mm-hmm.
who I think more appropriately would be considered psychic rather than medium. Although, I mean, I'm glad Marty kind of clarified that a little bit, because it does overlap quite a bit. But I had readings from both of them, and the readings were amazing to me. And so now I'm thinking I really should have Marty do a reading for me, and maybe for Dan too, just to see where that overlap is. You know, we're kind of approaching the same thing from different angles, maybe. So I'm happy that we have Marty here, who seems to be a little bit different even from the two that we had interviewed before.
You know, yeah, everyone has their own style and their own way of approaching. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, all I was going to say is just to give a little a validation to what Marty does. Marty did a reading with me not too long ago. And in terms of the evidentiary kind of thing, she focused on a watch that was really important to me. And she wouldn't have known this, but I have my grandfather who's passed many years ago, and actually his name was Dan, so that's how I got my name. His watch, I've got his watch, and she picked up on that, and I'm going, I don't know how she could have figured that out. So I think
Call me.
Yeah, there you go. So that's a testament to her skills.
Yeah, it's I speak with spirit, I hear spirit, I hear them speaking in my head, I see them, see every sense, you know, see, hear, feel. Often they'll show me a taste or a smell, and it just depends on what I find. Spirit is, if you were a great communicator in life, if you love to chat in life, then you usually love to chat still, you know, on the other side. Mm-hmm. And those are the best ones that like to talk, because that's easy for me. It's just, go ahead, tell me what you want to tell Dan.
And so how do you control that? That's always being someone who's very not psychic, at least as far as I know. I know everyone has some latent ability, but for some of us, it doesn't come easily. But how do you, I mean, when does the floodgate open? When you first meet someone, do you start getting impressions without your intention, or do you have to consciously say, okay, now I'm opening myself up? Otherwise, you'd just be bombarded by everything and everybody.
Yes.
And is that part of the skill set that you develop?
Yes.
To survive, basically?
Yes, 100%. You just hit the nail on the head. That is there are many phases of mediumship development or psychic development. I've studied with the best of the best teachers in the world, and there are rules in the spirit world. It's really based on your own intentions. So it's the further along you develop in your psychic abilities and your mediumship, the how you do that is your self-development, becoming aware of yourself and who am I, and who do I attract? Who do I want to attract? Who do I want to speak with in spirit? And so it's really important to have great boundaries, to know thyself. I can't emphasize that enough. The more you do this work, for example, I had a stressful upbringing. I've had near-death experiences as a child, and I do believe that from those, many mediums do. And many mediums also have had traumatic childhoods, and psychics. I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. Is it because of trauma or stress that you seek refuge in the other side as a child? Or is it that this is what we came in for and the other side finds us? And I think it's both. I've had experiences that would tell me it's sort of both. But yes, when I was a little girl, I was bombarded and I had to sleep with the light on, with my cat under the covers, and there were people walking around my room, and I didn't know what they were. They were full on people, and that I would see, but slightly transparent. And so I thought, my cat would see them too, but I tried to tell my parents, and they were sort of, oh, that's just bad dreams. Half listening. It was the 70s. So I thought, oh, okay, that's just what bad dreams are. So I thought everyone had dreams like that they whispered in my ear. they would poke me and touch me, and they would tell me things to tell my friends. So long story short, through many, I had childhood friends die along the way growing up and contact me after their death in that way. Come to me in my dreams at night or physically stand beside my bed and poke me awake. And they would tell me things. Hey, tell my sister this. Hey, tell my mom and dad that. So I started getting braver. I was like, no way, I'm not doing that. And then as I got older, I got braver and I started sharing the messages, and darned if they weren't right on. And people would just be freaked out. Like, how would you know that? There's no way you could know that. Like, because they told me. So yeah.
Do you ever deny the dynamics here are so interesting to me, the development from a kid, because everyone we've interviewed, whoever has claimed any sort of sensitivity or psychic ability, it's the same story. It happened when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I thought it was normal as I grew up. And then there was a point where my parents dismissed it. Or some people have parents who know because they're psychic themselves, but they don't really want to let on. They don't really want to foster it. They're hoping maybe their kid won't go through the things that they did.
Yes.
That sort of thing. But you eventually hit a point where you say, hey, this isn't normal, in quotes. This isn't what all my kid friends are experiencing. This is very different. And then you learn to live with it somehow and cope with it and deal with it. And hopefully you grow up and you end up where Marty is, where you can control it to some extent and you can use it to help other people. I'm sure plenty of people never get to that point. It probably drives them crazy in one way or another.
Yes.
It's a very common theme that we've heard even on our shows here, but when you read about it too, it's common. So do you ever deny the spirit? I mean, say someone comes up to you and says, hey, tell my sister this. And do you ever say, no, I don't, why don't you tell her yourself?
In the beginning, it was, you see that some of TV shows where the medium runs up to someone in the supermarket. No, I'm not going to do that. Because that's not cool. To me, you don't know, maybe they don't want to hear. I can't know that. I think that's very presumptuous. So yes, I've had it where I'm in a grocery market and I can feel someone really strongly walking. I could see a spirit walking with their loved one through, I could see them, they're transparent. And so, oh, okay. And I'll hear them, oh, you can see me. I mean, that's rare. That's rare as an adult now. But it was common as a kid, not knowing who's real and who's not. That was very confusing. And so I just kept my mouth shut.
So,
yeah.
How old were you when you first recognized you were a little bit special? And do you remember the event that caused you? Yeah.
It was my next door neighbor who died. And he was like a brother to me. And he was 2 years older and he drowned. And it was really sad and terrible. And we were next door neighbors, best friends, close families, raising the kids together. And when he passed, he drowned. That in the afternoon that evening, he came to me that night and told me what happened. And he also came to his sister, who was my best friend. And so the next day, we both said, hey, he came to me last night. Did he come? Yeah, he did. We just knew. And she said, well, what did he say to you? Here's what he said to me. And I said, yeah, the same stuff. He said all the same stuff. And, tell my parents I love them. Tell Linda I love her. It was beautiful, but I was in 5th grade and she was in 4th grade. So that's 10, I was 10 or 11. It was shocking and upsetting because we just knew there was that separation at that time. It wasn't, oh, go tell your parents everything. We didn't tell them anything. I mean, I told my parents once, I'm having these really weird people walking in my room. Oh, that's just your vivid imagination. You just are having bad dreams. So, and that's how they handled her too. And so we just told each other. And so we had each other and we both had a lot of psychic experiences from then on. I think because we had a good friend on the other side then. And I do believe that was the connection. So, no boundaries. It's all about being really strong in yourself, as I have heard of people when they're first starting out, feeling afraid, feeling like, oh, I want to control this. Are there negative spirits? Are there bad spirits? Are there, no. People who've passed, no, they're just spirit. And do they there's gradations, there may be immature spirits. It's just like how we are here. There may be some evil spirits on the other side, like, oh man, you really screwed up your life. They are accountable. And that's, by the way, not who I normally attract. So I'll tell you, it's all about your intention. Our minds are so powerful. And my intention when I first started doing mediumship was I want to use this gift to help heal spirit and humans still here in the earthly realm. So whatever that looks like and whatever that means, I dedicate my practice to serving others and let my messages be healing. Let them be a healing experience for all involved. And wow, I've had, I've worked on some cold cases, some murders that are pretty dark and scary, but I'm going to see it through the person's eyes, the victim's eyes. You have to be a mature person. Listen, it took me till I was 50 to have the guts to do this professionally. But up until then, when I was 29, I gave birth to a son who's an amazing psychic and medium. And when I started witnessing him and he came to me, I did not poo-poo him. I'm like, oh no, it's happening to him too. I better get my stuff together.
Yeah.
And I better teach myself and not be frightened of this. I better, so that I can lead him. How can I parent him appropriately when he's having all these paranormal experiences? I'm also having them. I'm not going to say, oh no, dear, that's just your imagination. No, because I'm having the same experiences. And that also validated it for my husband and my son and I. The three of us were having paranormal experiences as we raised our son. So talk about, I'm a natural skeptic. I'm a critical thinker. I have a college degree, Wazoo, 1986. Go Cougs.
Dave's a fellow Coug.
Oh, woo, woo.
91, 92.
Cool, not too far off.
Yeah.
My degree is communications. And so
Dan and I have spoken with Marty. I mean, Dan more than I have, but in an email group, and it's obvious she's an intelligent and articulate person. So, you might have somebody who comes in with, probably we don't have a lot of skeptics watching and listening to our show. I hope
no, right, yeah.
But you'll have skeptical, critical thinking people, which is, what we want.
Yeah.
And it'll be difficult for them to dismiss what Marty says, as crazy as some of it might seem. But I think even the first 20 minutes or so here, it's obvious that she's not delusional. No. I mean, these are things that the interpretation that she's given is the most logical one, as incredible as it seems. And so along those lines, I'm going to take you at face value here for what you've said. And I wonder, do you have insights into the other world, the other side, as you put it?
Yes.
What are the motivations here? Sometimes it almost seems comical how mundane some of the activities, the actions appear to be from people on the other side, because we have this idea that it's heaven. It's, it's an exalted, elevated state.
Oh,
but a lot of times you get the feeling that, like you said, the people, quote, the spirits over there are like the people over here. What are your insights into what it's really like there, and what the motivations are, and what the point is?
Okay.
And add into that, if you would, because this has been going through my mind. 2 words: gift or curse. Is what you have a gift, or is it in some respects a curse? Go ahead.
It's like any challenge in life, it's challenging. And my mom always teases me. She's like, oh, you'd be bored if you were any other way. Because
Right.
I hate boring. I love interesting. I have endless curiosity in my mind. But I had such bizarre experiences as a child, I just cataloged them away because I didn't really have anyone to go to until I was a teenager. I started confiding in my grandmother, and I had my mom's mom to coach me along, because she had very much precognitive dreams that would come true. And so did I. I had just a ton of, what? How would I know that? And then it happens the next day. Really interesting experiences that way. So is it a gift? It's a huge gift. And it's like, you better do something with this. You better educate yourself. I think if you have, I have had experiences with UFOs. I've had experiences with Sasquatch, experiences with fairies, experiences with gnomes, experiences with the unexplained, question mark. Still don't know what that was. But what's fascinating to me is that, I have a lifetime of these experiences now. And so I have a library. I feel, a walking library of, okay, this is what it's like over there, through research, reading all the books I could by any psychic medium ever. As I was, like I said, I was trying to train my son. So I was educating myself along the way. But it was just go to the library and check out what was there. You mentioned about heaven, and that I could go on forever about that, but I will not. The bottom line is, as above, so below is very true. So, what you believe is what you will live on the other side. It's interesting to me that I've done quite a few readings. I'm very Jesus-y myself. I love Jesus. I'm probably not a traditional Christian, but Jesus is one of my guides, and I do consider him an ascended master. And I am a Christian. I follow Jesus. I tend to get people who also are connected with Jesus in some way. And when I say connected, I mean they've had Jesus experiences. Like Jesus has come and stood at the foot of their bed, and they woke up in the middle of the night and went, what? And things like this. So that's interesting. I guess what it is I've taken notes, I've kept track, and now looking back, you do start to see patterns. You do start to understand it. Channeling is sort of the apex, I think, of mediumship. And I do channel, meaning it's different than doing a reading for you, because when I'm doing a reading for you, it's me as the go-between with spirit. In mediumship, it's me talking to your loved ones and then going, okay, they're saying this. Or psychic, it's me digging into your energetic field and saying, okay, I see this. But the channeling is, I set my own, best way to describe it, set your own consciousness to the side and let a spirit from the other side or any other realm come in and use you to speak. And that sounds pretty trippy and weird. And I had to be convinced to do it the first time, because I'm a very traditional person in my personal life. I'm not so crazy as I sound here. And so for me to go, channeling, what? All right, I'll try. But I do have the gift of channeling, and I can, I have a friend in spirit on the other side who I've channeled many times. And in fact, there are YouTube videos of me channeling him. His name's Rob Myers. And he's the son of one of my dear clients and good friends, Nancy Myers. But he's a young man who passed when he was 27 years old. And very articulate, funny, smart, and an amazing person who had left behind a huge hole, as you can imagine. He was an assistant DA in Southern California. And he started, Nancy, his mother, who lost her 27-year-old all-star son, and was one of my earlier clients. And she said, I did such an amazing job of bringing him through. She said, I bet you could channel him, because she wanted to talk to her son again. And I said, oh God, I mean, I don't know. That's a little out there. That's a little weird, Nancy. It's getting a little strange, but I did it. And the first few episodes on there are a little rusty and hinky, because I wasn't quite sure what I was doing, but I did. It's all visualization. I set my consciousness to the left. Robbie came in, and I'm talking about this because you asked about what is heaven like, and he's given these amazing descriptions of, because he's a talker just like me, and he's given these amazing descriptions of what is it like in heaven, what are the different levels of heaven. There are different levels depending. we all have lessons. We come here to earth to fulfill a soul contract, a soul lesson. And we may have many lessons in this life. We may just have one or two that we came here to learn. We also came here to do. We all have a purpose. So, how wonderful if you get to live that purpose in life and you get to follow your bliss. If you've learned your lessons well, once we go to the other side, everyone gets a review. You get to feel, see, hear. It's like a rewind the video on your life. And where did you succeed? Where did you fail? Or not fail? Where did you have challenges that you need to work on still, that your soul still needs to work on? Everyone gets that. And we meet with our teachers and guides and our loved ones. Oh, by the way, everyone gets a party when they cross. No question, everybody. And, I'm trying to think of how much can I say that I don't give things away. I have some clients that I do channeling for. I don't listen to any of those. So I don't really know what was said. I hear from others. Oh, yeah. Remember when Robbie said this, or remember when Archangel Michael said that? Oh my God, I had a client who said, you channeled Jesus and it was beautiful. It was like we have a new chapter of the Bible. I thought, okay, that seems a little much, but I read what was, he had transcribed what I said, what I didn't say, what Jesus said through me. I think that everybody has the capability to do this to some extent or another. I do. And do you have the time and the inclination? Not everyone's into that, but I am. So heaven is what you want it to be. Robbie said there's a common area where everyone can kind of meet, but then everyone does have their own area of like-minded souls that they retreat to. They may attend classes. So we keep working on our souls over there as we did here. And why people want to incarnate on Earth, as crazy it is as it is here, is because it's the speeded up version of lessons. You get jam-packed experience when you come here, and then you go to the other side and it's, whoa, I have to download all this information. And if you stay over there, which our souls want to do, long to do, because what it is, no, I don't think it's some big exalted place, but it's beautiful and it's free of angst, free of suffering. Mm-hmm. That's the best way I can describe it. No more suffering, no more negative emotions. This is how you know when messages are from spirit, is that they're positive. They're not negative. There's no judgment anymore. There's, oh, I see you have this lesson you're working on. I still love you. I mean, these are the messages that come through. It's all about love, love, love. I know that our loved ones in spirit will do everything they can to support us who are still here on this earthly plane. It's hard here. It's difficult. We have physical challenges. You don't have that anymore. On the other side, you just get to fly around and be free. And that's a beautiful thing for so many people.
And this,
I don't know.
What you're saying is so, I suppose if you were hearing it, you're a listener hearing this sort of encapsulation of the other side for the first time, it just may be mind-boggling. But I've read hundreds of near-death experience reports. I mean, listened to so many different psychics and mediums and philosophers, and the message is so consistent, what you're saying, that none of it is a surprise at all to me, and I'm sure Dan too, because you've heard it all, and it's so consistent. And I've been intrigued over the last several years about the idea of an Akashic record, like a library where not just books, but human experiences, three-dimensional, emotion-filled odysseys, are sort of wrapped up and saved somehow in the ether or whatever medium you call it on the other side.
Yes.
Is that kind of what's happening? Is it really an accumulation of human experience and other realms too, I assume, but we're trying to maybe build the mind of God or refill God's experience? I mean, can it get that deep and amazing to think about? What are your thoughts about the Akashic record? Or you can explain what it is too, if you want.
Yes, I do Akashic record, Akashic, whatever. I do Akashic records readings. All that is in my book is I go into a light trance and I'll access, I do Akashic Records past lives readings for people. And I do know, or what I've been told by other psychics and mediums, I don't know, is this true? Is it not true? I don't know. I can do it very easily. I can trance very easily. That's a certain gift of mine. And I can go into a light trance and still be with you and access the library of you. And yes, each and every one of our souls has our own soul records, and it's endless. I mean, so many past lives. And of course, time is not linear. It is more like you have a master soul in the middle, and then of a wheel. If you visualize a wheel, and then you are in the middle, like the hub, and you have all these spokes coming out, and those are your different branches of all these different lives. Mm-hmm. And yes, that does account for parallel universe where things are slightly different than this one. The choices of free will that we make here that change things and change outcomes. So past lives readings are really fun. You can do this yourself. There's, I'm trying to think, a ton of books out there on how to access your own Akashic records. And for me, it's just, oh, okay, I'm going to the Akashic records in my mind, and I'm visualizing I'm there, and I'm there, and I walk in and start talking about a past life of yours. And what is incredible to me, I thought, well, that's pretty out there. That's pretty woo-woo, you know. I didn't think a lot of people would want to have those type of readings. I'm so wrong. Everyone's super interested. And when I say, oh, I could easily do that for you, let's do it. and so the stories that come in make zero sense to me, but they're just incredible because they always make sense to the person's soul. That person is like, oh my God, that makes total sense because X, Y, or Z. And I can't explain it much better than I'm trying to think of. Oh, I can talk about this. I did one past life reading for a gal who, her guide was a very famous saint. And I don't know saints, I'm not Catholic. And so I say the name of this saint, and she's, oh, you know, and I'm just talking about, they were nuns together. They were in this convent, and it was, I gave where it was, you know, the town, the country, the year, everything. I was asking, you know, because I connected up with that spirit in the Akashic records. I'm speaking to her live, this aspect of this woman's soul. And she's talking to me, yes, we were best friends, and we lived in this convent, and this is the town where it is, and this is what it was called. And I mean, all these details, and I'm thinking, man, I have no idea if any of this is right. But I don't think, that's the thing, you can't think. You must suspend your disbelief. You must just go, listen, you give what you get, and that's the number one rule in psychic or mediumship. I'm not to judge. I'm just to give what I get. And so that is the most effective way, because when I got done, she was in tears saying, oh my God, yes, I'm obsessed. You know, I've been to that town. I've been to that convent. I've been to the castle. She's one of my guides. You couldn't possibly have known that. I'm like, I know. I mean, this is real. This is, well, it's a beautiful thing. I don't have faith anymore is what I say. There's no faith with me. I just know what is. I mean, because when you do this over and over and over and over and over, and you get yes, how could you know that? Oh my God. All of this evidence to me is like, well, this is, I know it's real. I know our souls continue on.
Yeah, it reminds me of what we had another guest. We had Marie France, actually. She was the third. I guess we've had three people come on. She was talking about the intermediary, or the sort of a holding place of souls in between here and the other side, which has really stuck with me for even, when did we interview Marie, Dan? That was like 2 years ago.
Quite a while ago.
2 or 3, probably 2 some years ago, but that really stuck with me, the idea of these souls kind of hanging around in the Netherlands, not in Europe, but the Neverland, you know, kind of the bus stop of between the two worlds or something. Just that image really stuck with me. And she said it was kind of a holding place where they were getting ready for their next adventure or their next lesson, but there was no time, and there was no place really, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. I kept asking her, so what did it feel like, what does it feel like to have no time, to not
Yes.
be in a physical place? It's just such a foreign concept for us in the 3D world.
It is. And I don't know about, that's a very shamanistic way of looking at it. I have studied shamanism. I love shamanism. I have a shaman that I see for readings myself. They're just slightly different. It's just like another flavor of this, do they see souls on the other side? Yes. But there's a whole nother aspect. That's what she's speaking of. I know I know Marie, she's a shaman.
Yeah.
Shamanic practitioner. And so that it's sort of almost similar to purgatory in the Catholic religion, a holding place like before you would go on. I would say I don't dwell in that realm because in what I understand, and someone's probably going to write in and go, no, that's wrong. I don't really know. My understanding of that you're describing as a shamanic practitioner is it's not limited to human souls. So that could be, where do the fairies come from and go to, that in-between worlds? Where does Sasquatch come in interdimensionally? Where do they go to when they leave? Where do I see UFOs all the time, and I've seen them enter our space like, boom, they're here, and then disappear just as suddenly. And where did they go? Did they go to that in-between world? I think so. I think there's all kinds of passages, and I've heard enough stories and studied enough that it feels a little dangerous to me, that world. So I don't really hang out there. I think a brave shaman has the confidence and the knowledge of how to. Have you seen that movie Soul? It's lovely. It really presents that concept well. It's animated.
Recent?
Yeah, it was just this last year. It's an animated Pixar movie called Soul, and it talks directly to this. They go to the in-between world where there are some lost souls wandering around, and they need to rescue them and either push them onto the other side or bring them back into the physical. So that is a concept of shamanic journeying. For example, I've had shamanic reading where I asked to have pieces of my soul retrieved because the studying that I've done in depth on trauma and childhood trauma, especially, you lose pieces of your soul with forms of severe abuse, etc., accidents, violence, whatever. It can. It doesn't mean you have to, but it can take away peace. It can be soul shattering. So to me, it's all in our minds that, use your brain to heal yourself. Why not have a shaman drum journey for you? And they visualize and they trance and they go to this in-between state and they will retrieve pieces of your soul. I've had that experience where I then had to reintegrate those soul pieces into me now. It was very moving, very powerful healing. And the experiences that I had and the dreams that I had the night after I had the soul retrieval, I emailed my shaman the next day and said, I don't know if I'm comfortable with this. This is really freaking me out because it was so moving and it was so powerful. And it brought back stories to me that I'd forgotten. That's how powerful it was. So all of this to me is very much aspects of our mind. And the bigger your brain, the more imagination you have, the more open you are to, hey, this is possible. How about we try it? The more fun you're going to have with all of this work, paranormal, everything.
So I'd like to take us to that in-between place that you referred to. And one of the things that drew me to you immediately, and it came up in this group, and we're not going to say where you live, but you live in southeastern Washington. Well,
yeah, just east of Mount Adams. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Man, we don't want to say any more than that.
No.
After people listen to what you're going to tell us, you might have to charge admission to get on your property. So tell us about where you live, the strange stuff that goes on there, and why you think it goes on there. Is it the place, or is it you, or is it a combination of all that stuff?
I think it's everything. Yeah, all of the above. But definitely the place is magical. I'm not alone in having these type of experiences here. I have had experiences here with all those people I mentioned before, the Sasquatch people, fairies, gnomes, people I call Menahunis, um, uh, aliens, I guess, the extraterrestrials. I won't say aliens, I'll say humanoid beings who seem to be on a spaceship, and there I was as well, hovering over this house. This house is on 30 acres, pretty remote. It takes me an hour to go in for groceries, basically. And it's, we're in the Cascades, and so it's magical. That's all I can say. There UFO lights all the time. It's not an unusual thing here. The Isetti Ranch is just 30 miles from where I live. And for those of you who are familiar,
well, tell us if you're not familiar. Tell us essentially what that is.
It's James Gilliland is the man who runs that place, and you can just go there and pay $10 and camp, and or just spend the evening. And every night they go out. They're right at the foot of Mount Adams, and all the light show begins. I mean, I've been there twice now and never been disappointed. It's nuts. I mean, you think, well, are we going to be able to see? You'd get excited just to see one ship, right? But it's like, no, that's nothing. I mean, they're just coming and going from the mountain. He's right at the base of the mountain, and so you leave there going, well, okay. It just blows your mind. And I've seen ships coming and going from there. Then where I live, I have a view of Mount Adams, and I see that, I don't know, just this last weekend, when the activity picks up around the mountain, it tends to be between 3 a.m. and 5 in the morning. And I'll just come down and, that's when the dog gets up and the cat wants to be fed. And so I look out the kitchen window and, oh, there you go. I've seen a lot of these ships that seem to be a large ball of light in the middle, and then shooting off from it are these tiny, tiny ships, almost like a mothership, and then sending off scouts, lights just going all around, and then they all come back. I've seen those orbs here in the trees, and they're basketball-shaped orbs in the trees at my house. One time I had one, a giant blue, good Lord, it was probably 10 or 15 feet tall. So this is no basketball. And it was coming down the mountain behind me. We're 30 acres on our own little mountain with canyons on either side. And so we're at the top is where my house is, and then a little mountain behind me. And so my dogs ran back in the house. We were heading out to go, pee the dogs at 4 a.m. And here comes this giant blue orb right towards us. And they all, turned tail and ran back in. Of course, I did too. I'm really scared of all this stuff. I'm terrified of it. But I'm not, because I know, okay, I've not really had any negative experiences. It's just freaky. It's not not what you expect to see.
Do you have a sense, and somebody asked me this question, and I've been to the Isetti Ranch, and I've seen some of the UFO activity and the orbs, but somebody said, do you think the government is studying this?
Yes.
And well, yeah, that's what I thought too. So
of course they are. And that's what, the more I've experienced all of this, I'm like, hello, what? So here's the thing. Remember I told you on Sunday when we emailed back and forth, I said, it's just interesting that we're going to talk on Monday because the activities really ramped up this weekend. And I just had all last week, every single day, I had some new weird thing happen to me. But the craziest stuff was all of these things I've experienced on their own. But this last week, it was nights full of crazy every night. And so that was new. That was new and different. It was like this. I go to bed. I'm a creature of habit. I go to bed every night at 10. 10:15, I get a bam on the side of the house, and it's Sasquatch. How do I know this? Well, I am a psychic and a medium, and I asked. I'm like, I mean, it would I used to go to bed earlier, like at 9, but it was always 10:15. I'd be woken up, bam, on the side of the house. And you hear, feel, the house shakes when they run by. It's really heavy. And you can hear them boom, 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 like a thundering herd. Sometimes it's just one or two. Sometimes it's just, I'd get up and jump and look out the window and I'd never see them physically. Everything else but see them physically. We have motion sensor lights here that go off. They go off and they're only set off by, a heat source. And so the lights are going off, boom, 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 hitting the side of the house and howling and laughing and talking. I hear what sounded like a bunch of Japanese men outside talking. Yeah, what? And apparently that's a thing that goes with many Sasquatch experiences. I didn't know about any of this until I lived here. I really was never into, they call them Bigfoot, and they don't like that, apparently. But I now am reading everything I can get my hands on, and I started reading Kiwani lepsoritis.
Yes.
His book talks about all of this stuff. And even I contacted him and told him about my stories. And I'm not anyone special. He's talked with over 400 different people who've had these similar experiences. It's just that, people don't want to go talking about it in public because, and the other thing is, I don't want people coming here and going, I want to have my own experience. No, they don't want that. I think why they're coming forward now, my gist is because I've channeled them twice after having these experiences. Long story short, I'm developing a relationship with Sasquatch people on my property. I never thought that would be a thing that a person could do.
Yes, how interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, yes. It's also slightly terrifying because they're huge. These guys are huge, and I've physically seen them now running across the property 3 times. But I just saw them this last week. I saw one running across, and I thought it was a black bear. I looked down the hill, and I think, that's a black bear. And I went, wait a second, that's not a black bear. It was going so fast, and it was so extra large. And then I ran with it through my house, following it along because it was going so fast. And his back legs it was a gorilla, it would look like. And I'm like, man, I'm looking way down the hill. It's about, I don't know, a quarter of a mile down my driveway, tearing across the property. And it looked as if the supernatural part of this is it looked as if someone had speeded up his legs, like, and he ran across the property and he ran into nothing. I caught him running enough that he disappeared into thin air. I'd been asking them, since I've been channeling them, I've been asking them, would you show yourselves to me? Because it's kind of makes me crazy that I don't physically see you. I just hear you. I've felt you, yet you hammer on my house. That right after that, this last week is when I had the 3 different sightings of running, climbing trees. The tree would start to shake really hard. And the Sasquatch would, jump to the next tree. And as he jumped, he disappeared into thin air. But you could see him, the results of him landing on the next tree. It's starting to go back and forth now. And there's no wind. Like I said, before any of this happened to me, when I hear people telling stories, I feel like, oh, okay, maybe that happened, or maybe you're just nuts. And to me, I'm like, I take notes. My husband's had experiences here. We had, like I said, a history of experiences with our son, and the 3 of us validating each other's paranormal stories with other entities as my son grew up. So yes, I think that mediums do attract this because we can see it, or it may also just be because we can see it. We can see it. It may be all around us most of the time.
Well, what's really interesting, there's 2 things that's really interesting about the Sasquatch kind of stories is, A, most of your encounters with them, although you did say you saw some running through the woods, most of your encounters, you don't see them. They're
Correct.
Not visible.
Yes.
So that's a huge, if you think about the Bigfoot community, there are people in that community, and Quani Lesperitis is not one of them, who would think that's just BS.
Yeah.
These are flesh and blood creatures. I don't think so.
No.
And you're validating that.
Yeah, because I've seen them physically go into another dimension. And the coolest thing that happened to me, and I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it, was in June of this year. It was late at night, and it was they did the 10 o'clock run by, and I jumped out, and of course I don't see anything, but I heard someone standing right below my window coughing, and it sounded like, I'm like, that sounds like me. That's like how I cough. And they mimic.
Mimic, yeah.
Yes. And I was like, oh my God, that little bugger. I'm like, okay, but he's probably not little. But he was like trying to get my attention. I had the window open. I'm up above. He's down below. It sounded like it was close to the ground. And so telepathically in my head, I said, I'm not buying any of this anymore. You guys never show yourselves to me. I just feel like a crazy person. You're making me crazy. I'm not going to get up and look. No. And I just stayed in bed. Cough some more. I'm like, nope, not getting up. This time I said it loud. Nope, I don't believe you until I see something. So then I hear really loud. I'm like, all right, I get up. And so I open the curtains. Oh my God. The light's on, and on the edges of the light, there's about, 15 Sasquatches, but they're transparent. They're semi-transparent. I couldn't see the bottom. I couldn't see the feet going around, like their calves and feet. I couldn't see. I saw the top 3/4 of them, about 15. I started counting, and they started appearing as I was counting. So I lost track at 15. I'm like, what? And it was dark, pitch black up here, but they're walking around this watering trough that I have out there, and I'm hearing boom, 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 like native drumming. And I went, okay, that's odd. And I was like, oh my God, I never have my cell phone handy at any of these times. And I'm like, but I did. And so I grabbed my cell phone and I went, I'm filming this. I don't care. I've got to get this. And so I start videoing, and I waved across, because I felt like I'm being given a really big gift here. They're showing themselves to me because I asked for it. And these red eyes from across the field looked at me, and it was like, oh no, you did not. And my phone flew out of my hand. I mean, I had no control. Phone flew out of my hand. Everything shut down. It was like, boom. I mean, I had the air conditioner on. I had the window open. I had all my lights on. Everything went out, and they were gone. And then it came back on, ooh, and nothing was there. And I thought, it's because I filmed them. They don't want to be filmed.
They want to be filmed. So speculation here. They're not just flesh and blood creatures. Where are they from? You talked about seeing some go through portals. Where are they from, and what are they doing here in our reality?
Yeah, the other thing that goes with it, that happened all week this week, was I'm seeing UFOs every night from 3 to 5, much more than normal. And those ships I was telling you about, the round ones that send out the smaller orbs. So that's happening. And at the same time, I'm hearing the Sasquatch come by around 10 every night, but they were much busier than normal because I won't go outside after dark here. I just won't. And they're thumping all around the house, like a big crowd. If you just sat in my cabin and listened, you'd think, what is going on out there? Like, is this a workshop? I could swear I was hearing car doors slam. And I heard about 3 or 4 car doors slam. I got my attention. I'm like, I'm looking out. I was too scared to look out, but I'm like, okay, I'm looking because I need to document this. I'm hearing all of this, nothing there. And so I close the curtains and I go lie back down. It starts back up again, all the noise. It sounded like it sounds like there's something going on underneath this place. And then I've been watching Skinwalker Ranch too. Yes, I love that show. But my husband calls it Skinwalker Cabin, because we have the same type of things happening here, and we live in the same type of area, a mountain, not too far from the mountains. And there's lava tubes underneath here, that go all through the Cascades. I'm just guessing with the type of, we've had the Menehune experiences. We've had
now talk about the Menehunes, because People might
Okay.
not identify what a Menehune is.
I call them Menehunis because I love Hawaii. And that's in Hawaii, they talk about the Menehunis. But they're these little black creatures. They're maybe 1.5 feet tall. I've seen them all over our property. I had experiences with them, ever since, I don't know, 2012. And quite common to see them. They're mischievous. I'm not a fan. They're not super friendly. But I don't know. I can't really say. I would just see them. I'd see them running down the hill. And at first I thought, okay, you're probably just seeing a squirrel or, I went through all of well, maybe, I don't know. And then that they're tricksters. They do, and so are the Sasquatch too. They'll do bird calls to each other, and you just know. You'll be standing outside in broad daylight, and you hear this weird bird call, and you think, okay, that's either, I think, Marty thinks, that's either a Menehune or a Sasquatch. That is not a bird, because they just sound fakey. They sound like a human imitating, imitating a bird, and it's owls. And in fact, in this area, just from anecdotal evidence of me talking with others in the area, there's a long history of the hoo-hoo men here, is what a lot of kids call them, the hoo-hoos, because they go hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. But that's
Imitate
both
owls.
the Menehunes and the Sasquatch. Both of them do that. So for years, I was thinking I was just dealing with these little black shadow people that I would see. But then just in the last couple of years, it's both. And come to find out, what Kiwani says in his books is that there's 3 groups that go together, and it's these beautiful blonde Nordic-looking ETs, extraterrestrials. It's those little black shadow people, Menehunes, and Sasquatch. The 3 apparently work together. And I was just, when I read his books, because I was telling my friend this story, and she goes, have you read this guy? He's talking about all the same things you are. I went, no, I never heard of him. So I find it amazing that I don't think it's a coincidence.
I've always felt sorry for Kwani, because when I've been to Bigfoot conventions, and I've been to quite a few, he's always ostracized by most of the other people, because he's not talking about flesh and blood creatures.
Well, I do believe they're flesh and blood, and they have the ability to travel between dimensions. I think that's humanly possible, and that I know from what I've been told about our future Earth, it's happening now. We've done experiments already where we can time travel, where we can travel between dimensions. I just know what I know, and I would only say that, I'm not going to try to convince other people. To me, I think everyone has to have their own experience. Do your own research, and you'll start, I believe, going down the same path I am. If you're a critical thinker and you just read everything that's out there about all these things.
So I've got one more question for you, then I'm going to shut up and let Dave get in here. So in the first part of October, I'm going to be back in Pennsylvania, going back to Gettysburg, just do kind of a ghost investigation there. But I was listening to a show with a guest who's going to be on that show, and he's not only talking about ghosts, he's talking about dogmen and Bigfoot. And you mentioned seeing a dog man. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. This was in June also. I was here and I was just standing in my kitchen looking out the window. We have this meadow out there that's very magical. That's where I've seen a lot of this stuff. And like I said, we have a giant trough out there that I water the deer. And but it's far from the house. I put it way far. I don't want them by the house. And so I think that has something to do with it. I don't know if they use it for something. I know that portals and the interdimensional travel, often people have witnessed this around a water source.
Water,
Okay, so I looked out the window and there was this giant yellow gold, kind of a red gold, yellow gold, almost looked like a lion. I thought, what is that? It was running first on 4 legs, then stood up and ran on 2 legs. I went, what? I've never seen anything like that. It had pointy ears like a wolf and like a wolfy snout, but I couldn't see the facial details because it was at a distance. I guess it's about I don't know, 50 yards away. And so in the tree line, I was watching a flock of wild turkeys around the watering trough. And so that's what I was focusing on. And here he comes bombing down the mountain and runs right into them. And they kind of scattered like, ah, like turkeys do. But no one was scared about him. It was almost like he was a playful dog. And he had this long tail. And I went, what is that? And I'm on the phone with my friend Nancy. I'm like, Nancy, oh my God, I got to try to take a picture of this. Hang on. And so that's me. I'm clumsy and I'm futzy. And I try to, I watched him. And the funny thing was his interaction with these turkeys. He was huge, standing on two legs. He had to be 8 feet tall because I know how tall those trees are out there. I could see where he came up to him. And he's kind of standing there like, oh. But the whole vibe was he came bombing down the hill to frighten him and nobody cared because they were all into their mating thing. And he's sort of like, oh. And he just walked off to the east and disappeared into nothing.
Wow.
And I physically saw that with my eyes. I've seen now several things like that here. Yeah.
But you didn't get a picture with your cell phone? No. Now, right
when I tried to snap it, it was gone.
Yeah.
Like, of course it is. So to me, I'm like, okay, I'm not the person who's going to get these pictures.
Dave, why don't you jump in here? I monopolized the conversation.
No. I knew we got into your realm, Dan. So I was like, he's going to run with this because the whole disappearing Bigfoot and dematerializing and that whole thing, which I admit I used to be very skeptical about, but after hanging out with Dan for a number of years, I've accepted that they probably are able to maneuver in that realm for whatever reason. I tend to think it's an evolutionary thing. They've been like a bat can use sonar, and the deep sea fish can, they've developed the luminescent tentacles or just these bizarre things that seem like magic. But it makes sense because they need to use them in the place that they live. And so if Bigfoot has been tromping around in our Pacific Northwest forests and other places for hundreds or thousands of years, why not? I mean, there's no reason that Bigfoot, Sasquatch can't have developed its innate sixth sense, a sort of sonar or some other, sort of offshoot ability that humans like ourselves have no remnant ability. We haven't fostered it, we haven't nurtured it, and so we've lost it. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable from that perspective that Bigfoot has so-called magical abilities. Now, obviously, dematerializing and writing on UFOs and all that it takes us into a different realm altogether. It's kind of hard to explain that through mundane processes, but the point, I'm sitting here thinking, listening to Marty talk about, and Dan and I have had this conversation many times about what would you do, Dan or Dave, if you came face to face with a Bigfoot, or you could substitute fairy or elf or dog man or mothman or whatever you want to put in there. What do you think you would do in the face of that experience? And I think we've agreed that what we would actually do is not probably what we think we would do or that we would hope that we would do. In other words, it would probably be turn tail and run screaming like a girl.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because that's when your fight or flight impulse takes over. I still hope to think that I might be calm enough to take out my phone and take a picture, but I know that's probably a long shot. But my question for you, Marty, is that, people like myself listening to this conversation, it's very frustrating to hear all of this activity, a lot of it potential physical evidence. Yeah. And how come we can't secure more of it? And I know that's kind of a rhetorical question because there are reasons, logical reasons, but I think it's also built into the equation that we're not supposed to, and that these entities purposely try to avoid it, which unfortunately plays into the skeptics' hand, so easily because they say, hey, how convenient, every time you get a chance, your camera fails or you drop the camera or, whatever. There's so many excuses for why we don't have physical evidence or photographic evidence. And I'm thinking, if I was in this situation, what I think I would do is buy every piece of high-tech, camera and infrared and heat sensing, whatever, and I'd wire up the entire forest in hopes to catch some glimpse of some of this craziness. But I know intuitively that I wouldn't do it if I was in your situation, and it's probably not the right thing to do. But what I'm having trouble with is understanding why I think that. Why is it not the right thing to do, and why do you not have the obsession with trying to acquire this evidence?
Because to me, this is how I live. This is what I do. I'm used to living and swimming in these waters of. I only have clients who believe in what I do. And then I prove it to them over and over and over. So I have now this, like I said, a library of knowledge, and it's so magical and it's so sacred. I consider this an extension of that. Whereas in the beginning, I was like you, thinking, man, the little that I had seen about Bigfoot growing up, we had a Sasquatch experience when I was young, camping with my parents, and we all witnessed it. And I just didn't know what I was looking at, and it was at a distance. And we saw it looking at my dad's tent, and me and mom and sis were in the car. I was little. And so I just always knew, oh, okay, that's a thing. Because my parents were like, holy crap, that's a Bigfoot. And I'm like, yeah, that wasn't a bear, was it? And I just thought, oh, okay. And to me, you don't have to prove things are real if you've seen them with your own eyes. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, but then my friend Nancy, she's an orb photographer, and she gets the most amazing pictures. And she's like, why don't you take pictures? I'm like, I don't think that way. I like to be in the moment. I like to experience what I'm experiencing. And I'm not a multitasker. I can't take a picture. I can't walk and chew gum. I'm really super klutzy. I have autoimmune issues. I have physical issues that keep me from being Johnny on the spot with the camera. So it's just not me.
Well, you also don't have the motivation to do it. Clearly.
No, I don't. Well, I did in the beginning because Nancy was yelling at me. You got to take a picture because nobody will believe you. I'm like, all right, I'll try. I do have a fairy picture that I got in a fairy experience. And I think I sent that to you, Dan, long time. Oh, maybe not. Did. Oh, it's really cool.
I'd like to see it again.
I will send it to you. It's cool.
I'm glad you answered Dave's question, but what I was thinking of is, why is it so important for certain people to have this evidence? Because they're all skeptical on some level. They're not going to believe it until they see it. You don't need that kind of evidence.
No.
You live these experiences.
Well, these are honored friends. I mean, but I am terrified. Like I said, I don't go out after dark here, period. I mean, I have pee pads for my dogs. So it's like, nope, we're not going out after dark because that's their time. And I hear them around the house. It happened gradually. The first 2 or 3 experiences where I had this experience, and then my husband also had the same identical experience, was we were each here alone, and those guys knew it. They came down at 4 a.m. I was out peeing the dogs, and I got that infrasound in my chest, like you were talking about, Dave, that you're frozen with fear. Mm-hmm. You can't move. And I was like, oh no. And they were, I could see the grass moving, that a giant, like it looks like the grass is moving for an elephant or a herd of elephants to come stomping down the mountain. I'm watching the grass move. I'm feeling the footsteps of stomp, stomp, stomp. I'm being shaken and I can't move. I'm frozen to the spot. And I was just started to hyperventilate. I'm like, like my dogs all ran back in the house because I was standing right by the door. And I'm like, I'm going back in too. And the minute I could get a release from that feeling, but I was frozen in fear because they were surrounding me and the house. And I heard them, like breathing really loud. They were right by me. There had to be at least 5. and they surrounded the entire house in a circle. And I'm inside, and I called my husband. I'm like, listen to this. He's in Spokane, and it's 4 a.m. He goes, why are you calling me? I go, listen to this. And they were outside going, hoo hoo, hoo hoo, hoo hoo, all echoing around the house. And I was like, those guys are taunting me. They're messing with me. They're just trying to scare me. And why? Why do they do that? That's just mean. And I'm like, but then again, I thought, well, they didn't eat me. They didn't attack. They didn't attack me. We were right there. We were frozen, my dogs and I. And we all got in the house, and I listened. 20 minutes that went on, them surrounding the cabin, hitting the side of the cabin as they ran around. You could hear it clear as anything, but you don't see them. And I was like, man, this talk about a psychological mind F, you know? I'm like, no, not cool. And so I have a temper. Imagine that. So I'm like, what the F? You know, I'm telling my husband, he goes, well, are you recording this? Oh, I didn't even think of that. I'm too scared. Yeah. I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, just a second, dear. Let me record this.
Yeah, stop. Would you guys stop so I can record this?
No, I said, what? And so I thought, all right, next time if I get caught like this again, I'm going to say something. I'm going to stay there, and I'm going to say something because I don't think I'm in danger. So I did. I stayed there. The next time it happened was a few weeks later, and they surrounded me again. I was with 2 of my dogs. One of them ran back in the house, and but my 2 dogs were wrapped around my legs, and they were surrounding me, and I couldn't speak, move, anything. You feel it in your chest, and it's called infrasound. Tigers do it, whales do it, elephants have the capability of doing it to freeze their prey. Mm-hmm. And so I was just frozen, and I'm like, I'm going to say something, because as I was standing there, I noticed they're surrounding me again in the circle, only this time they're doing hawk calls. They're going all around me. And I just said, if you're trying to scare me, it's working. Why do you do this? And they stopped immediately, and they just moved on down the hill like, oh, sorry. I mean, it had that energy of like, like they were teasing. And I talked to Kiwani about it, and he goes, yeah, that's them. That's just their way. So I've channeled, what also leads me to believe this, and is I haven't told you guys this yet. So I'm like, Kiwani says, oh, they're telepathic communicators. I didn't really experience that, but I tried it. I'm like, all right, Kiwani said so. So the next time they hit the house at 10:15, I'm going to telepathically send messages. And I said in my head, why are you doing this? And they stopped, and I hear clear as anything, it's just our way. And they said, you are an honored friend. I'm like, all right. And it was quiet, and they moved on. And so I said, okay. I tried it again a couple nights later when they hit. I'm like, I'm up for it. And I telepathically said, I'm going to leave you a gift. Do you like apples or peaches? And so I left them apples and peaches, a bag. I told them where it would be telepathically, didn't tell anybody else. I mean, we're out in the middle of nowhere. So I put it right on the edge of the canyon where they come from. And I made it in a high tree, like only they could really access. I didn't want wild animals or bears getting it. Right. And I checked, I heard back, yes, we hear you. Yes, we want gifts. I said, all right, well, let's try this out. So I did. And I went back the next day, and it was all gone. They left 1 apple, and the bag was neatly folded and placed on the stump. It wasn't as if a wild animal had got it. So after that, they left me a really cool rock on my front porch. And how do I know it was them? I just know, because I go to bed and there was no rock on my front porch. And then I collect these rocks here. They're really cute, like light white and peach rocks, and just pretty rocks that I find. And so I got up the next morning after the first bag of fruit gift, and there was this pretty little peach rock left for me. And I'm like, was that you? And I didn't hear anything. So it's been minimal, the telepathic communication. I only trust that because, I've had so much experience with it, with communicating with spirit that way, with channeling. I've channeled them twice, like I said, for different groups. And one time when I channeled two of them came in who live on the property. Yes, they've been here for 50 billion years. They are Earth, much older race than we are on Earth. And they were here for the seeding of us, is what they told, I guess, in this channeling. And that they did also have another planet that they came from, but they liked Earth, and so they stayed. But they do come and go. And yes, they are guardians of the Earth. And no, they don't want their picture taken. And they want it to be private, and they don't want humans to bother them. They did say that Yetis are violent, and that's a whole different species of them, that some are more animal than they are. These are the Sasquatch people, and they talk, but they look like gorillas from what I've seen. They don't look human at all. I guess there's another race of people that lives around here that are called the Ancient Ones. I don't have experience with them.
And are they more human? Okay.
Yes, apparently so. Yeah, this is what Kiwani says in his books. Why do I believe Kiwani? Because I've experienced it all before I ever heard of him. So
fascinating.
That to me is evidence enough.
Well, I find with many of our guests that instead of doing an hour and a half show, we could do a couple of days and a half show. Yeah. But we've been on here for a little over an hour and a half, and I want to be cognizant of the time that you've given us, and want to thank you for being on our show. The guy that we're going to meet back in Gettysburg is really into dogmen, and I wonder if you would mind if I forwarded your name.
Oh,
His name is Lon Strickler, and he lives just outside of Gettysburg, and they did a whole show on dogman here just a week or so ago. So he might be an interesting person to talk to about that. So thank you, Marty, so much for sharing time with us. Dave, do you have any kind of parting words for Marty?
I'm wondering, Marty, do you have regular office hours, so to speak, for psychic readings or mediumship? I mean, do you have a business? Do you have a website? Because
yes.
I'm thinking that, like I said, I talked to had two people do readings. I'm thinking a trifecta here. To have you weigh in would really be incredibly interesting to me. Yes. That's my personal, my selfish motivation here. But also, if you do have something that you'd want to share in terms of website and hours when you might do this, or circumstances where you might do readings, that would be great to have. And I'll make sure to put it on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah.
What's your YouTube channel? You said you have a YouTube channel?
I do, but I don't even know. You should look up the Robbie videos under Entering the Light Fantastic.
Entering the Light Fantastic?
Okay. Yeah. That's a whole different thing. I don't think I have those on my channel even. I don't have videos on my own channel yet. Because anyway, long story. But yes, my name, MardyMcCray.com. That's my website. And yes, I'm available for private readings, and I do public events. I'm going to Southern California in a couple weeks here to do a flurry of public demonstrations of mediumship with, large audiences. So, yeah.
Cool.
And by the way, we're going to have your friend Nancy on I think in November sometime. So she can tell us about all of her orb collections, photos of orbs. So thanks.
Amazing.
Thanks for giving us that lead. Well, thanks.
Yes.
Take care of yourself. If anything really weird, I was going to say, well, most of the stuff you told us is pretty damn weird. But if anything even weirder, call Dave or I, and we'll be happy to listen to your latest adventure.
Yeah.
And say hi to Bigfoot from Dan.
I will.
Not me, but don't mention my name, but you can.
Right? Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.